your names
Okay.
and where you're from.
Okay.
يلا.
Hi, my name is Mira. Mira Labit. I am originally from the 48th city of Al-Lud, but I live in Ramallah, West Bank.
My name is Amr Sharab. I'm from Khan Yunis in Gaza Strip. I was born in Saudi Arabia and I lived there for a while. And then we moved back, my family moved back to Palestine, to Gaza. And obviously my parents are born and raised in Gaza, but my dad became a refugee in 1967, and he couldn't come back. And when our family returned in '96, he was actually living in Gaza illegally.
Interesting. So, what motivated y'all to come over here and spread this awareness about the conflict?
Well, basically, it's more about, we're not specifically talking about the situation or the occupation in the political context. We're talking about education, its effect on education. So the majority of the talk is about how does the occupation affect the freedom to education in Palestine, whether it's the West Bank, the Gaza Strip, or the 48 territories. And it's more of raising awareness on a topic that's not really touched on. So this is the motivation, really.
And how do you think, or thus far in your tour, how have the people in the schools that you visited responded to or connected to that right to education?
Well, I think since we've been doing youth, we've been doing universities, and today we'll be doing high schools, they're going to respond in a way that is a bit more, I think they listen to learn because they are also students and it's something that's very relevant to their lives. So it's been good, it's been interesting. I haven't had the $1 million question from any of the students yet, but I think people are taking it in, they're digesting it. So hopefully it goes well.
And I think people are engaged, people are interested in hearing what we're saying. They are shocked and horrified to hear these stories about fellow students, people like them, who happen to be born in some other part of the world and who have to go through all these difficulties and all these horrific situations in their daily lives just to get to school or to get to class. So people, for the most part, are shocked because they never ever hear these things in the news or they never hear it discussed anywhere. And I think this is important that everyone knows about it.
And what is the importance of the right to education within Palestine for the Palestinian people?
Well, like everyone else, I mean, the world now is globalized to an extent. There is everything you do, you need language as a beginning. Then you need to be able to read and write. Like if you talk about just the internet, everything's on the internet. Everything is in English, more or less. So just on a basic level, to be able to work or speak or move, you need to be educated in one form or another. And secondly, since Israel in the 80s, they have made education illegal. They made education illegal during the first Intifada from 87 to 93. And which was also a huge sort of push towards saying already people were educated, wanted to be more educated, and this was a push that's saying you cannot do this, you cannot go and improve yourselves. So it pushed us more as Palestinians. It's an asset, it's something that everyone should have because it's a fight. It's one of the basic rights of humanity and one of the basic things we fight with, our education.
Yeah, for us just to add to this, for us Palestinian people, education is, as it is for everyone else around the world, It's a universal right that everyone should have access to. But in addition to this, for us Palestinian people, it is a means of survival and a means of resistance. Because most of the Palestinian people have turned into refugees now. They lost access to most of their agricultural land. They don't have freedom of movement to cross the borders and do trade or commerce. And education is the only way they have left to improve themselves and have better dignified living and to provide for their families. So without education, Palestinian people cannot survive. That's one aspect of it. It's an aspect of challenging the occupation. Education gives us the tools and skills to talk about the suffering of the Palestinian people and enlighten and educate the rest of the world about the plight of the Palestinian people. It allows us to exist, and for Palestinian people at this point in time, existence is resistance, and education is a major ingredient in the existence of the Palestinian people.
What role has education played in your lives?
Well, basically, everything. I don't see education as a degree. I see education as a whole philosophy of life. You know, the more you know, even though suffering is knowledge. You know, the more you suffer, the more you know, the more you are able to change things around you, whether it's locally or internationally. And I think for me, it made me more aware about the world outside of Palestine, the fight of other people who are struggling for their freedoms in one way or another. And so it's more of like, it's an eye-opener. It's an eye-opener, mostly.
Yeah, education provided me with the skills and tools of survival. It opened my eyes, it broadened my horizon, it introduced me to so many wonderful people, and it introduced me to the suffering and the plight of so many other people. The slavery in Northern America, the civil rights movement in Northern America, Martin Luther King Jr., to learn about colonialism, and to learn that the struggle of people is well connected. Colonialism in Israel is not a unique phenomenon, and what I gathered through my education, it is connected to the colonialist movement throughout history and throughout the world. And education allows me to establish links with other like-minded people who stand up and call for justice and for peace, and who try to fight against tyranny, colonialism, and discrimination wherever it is, whenever it is.
And what can people from the United States do to help ensure that Palestinians and other people around the world have the right to education?
Well, I think the United States is a very resourceful area. I mean, North America, it's one of the places in the world that actually has control. Political control, or authoritarian control, capitalist control. And the people of the United States, like any other, have their own struggles. But I think it's important to sort of unite as human beings. And in education, maybe we can unite with the students. We can say to them, look, this is what we can't have, and this is what you have, and this is what you can do to support us. Because we're not looking for the money of your government. We're not looking for the support of your government. We're looking for the support of the regular people, the small people like ourselves. Because they're the ones that make most difference. And I think we've seen this recently in Egypt and in Libya and in Tunisia and in Syria, that the people who are actually moving are the little people, the marginalized, the workers, the farmers. And this is who we're talking to, the students who come from different backgrounds. And it's about support, it's about solidarity all around. And I think it's important that I think for American students or people, like, the more they educate themselves on what's happening, and the more they ask questions, the more they can support us. And we are here seeking support. So I don't know, I just ask questions, take action, organize.
Well, I have been in the States for almost 7 years now. and I have met so many Americans, and most Americans I have met are wonderful, good-natured, kind, and genuine people. And they believe in people's right to life, people's right to liberty, people's right to education, people's right to live a normal life. That's the American people. Unfortunately, the American government and American foreign policy does the exact opposite. America provides $3 billion of military aid to the state of Israel every year. This money goes toward the occupation, toward purchasing weapons that will oppress people, and will deprive Palestinian people of their basic rights. The United States government provide blind political support for and backing for the State of Israel in the Security Council, in the United Nations, and everywhere else. And the United States policy, the policies of the government of the United States of America, stands against all principles that this country was built upon, and all the principles and values that are dear to every American heart. So for the American people, what they can do, they can learn about what's happening in Palestine, learn about what Israel is doing, learn about what their government is doing in their name, and then they can turn around, tell their representatives, tell their senators, tell their government, not in our names. America stands for freedom, America stands for liberty, America stands for democracy, and we demand that you stop your blind support for Israel, because we want freedom for Palestine, and we want freedom for all the oppressed people around the world.
Great. Last question. You all mentioned that you haven't got the $1 million question from students. What would the $1 million question be?
I'm not sure yet. I think I'll know it when I hear it.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't know how to answer it.
Oh.
And then I would ask that person to be the president of the United States.
Fair enough. Thank you.
Thank you.